Okay, guys, let's get going. This is Tim Fox, the CTO for Infolob Solutions based in Dallas, Texas. You're also being hosted by Samir Date, our sales director for the cloud products nationwide, and Brent Seaman, our director of cloud technologies. Today, we're going to talk about Oracle Cloud at Customer. We're going to give you maybe a different view of the platform than what you might have seen earlier today from Oracle. There was another Cloud at Customer presentation going on. But what I'm going to try to do is show you what we have experienced with Cloud at Customer, and then also give you some real world examples of both what the Cloud at Customer looks like, as well as how it might operate. And we'll talk about some of our experience with several of our customers who are running the Cloud at Customer product. So with that, we'll get going here. You should be seeing my screen, which is the Oracle Cloud at Customer opening screen. Samir, if you would just verify for me that you can see that screen.
Yes, I can see it just fine.
Okay, and I've switched to screen 2. This is an overview of our company. So as long as we're on screen 2 now, Samir, we'll go ahead and move on. We good?
Looking good.
All right, great. So Infolob, just give you a little bit of background here. We were founded in 2009. We have about 250 employees overall now, mixed between the US and Hyderabad. We're an Oracle only shop focusing on what we call the red stack. Many of you might know us as the Exadata guys. That's something that we've been doing since about 2010. So running Exadata means that you have to understand the Oracle database first. Exadata just sort of becomes the gravy on top of that. So once you are familiar with the Exadata stack, transitioning over to Cloud at Customer is not a big switch. If you've never had Exadata, Cloud at Customer, it may add a little bit of additional opportunity for work that you might not have identified in the past, but we're going to talk about exactly what all that is. Again, we only have an hour, so I'm going to go fairly quickly through this to try to make sure we have some Q&A time at the end. Some of what I'm going to show you today is based in our technology lab in Dallas, where we have a virtualized Exadata, which will look to you just like a Cloud at Customer machine because it is running the virtual environment. And I also have an autonomous transaction processing database, which is running in the Oracle Cloud, but is also a service of Cloud at Customer, which I will do a little demo for you there too. Okay, so let's get moving on here. From the perspective of Infolob, these are the things that we do. We are the red stack guys, so whether you're running eBiz or custom data warehouse, any package application, as long as it's got an Oracle database behind it, we are a services group that can help you out. That top bullet point is one of those things that's about to change. Oracle is changing their partner structure, but for the last 5 years, we've been one of the 25 Oracle Managed Platinum partners, which just means that we have access into Oracle executives that some of the partners might not. Most of what people know us for is Exadata, but as I said, you have to understand fully the Oracle Red Stack before you can be good at Exadata. So these are services we provide. I'll give you just a brief shot here at some of our customers. I would say 99% of our customer base is running Exadata or Exadata Cloud at Customer. All of those that have Cloud at Customer today in our customer base had Exadata on-prem previously. So none of them are brand new to Exadata, which has given them a little bit of an advantage. Okay, so let's get into what constitutes Cloud at Customer from an Oracle perspective, because there is more than just one product. Okay, the Exadata Cloud at Customer is the one that we talk most about because that's the one that is probably the most prevalent today. As I said, a lot of our customers have switched from on-prem Exadatas to Exadata Cloud at Customer. Basically, what Exadata Cloud at Customer is a Exadata hardware stack. It is installed in the customer's data center. and managed by Oracle. We'll talk a little bit more about how Oracle manages it and what that means, what it means to be managing the storage cells and the DOM 0. And the customer is responsible for everything else. So there is, it depends on how you want to look at it. You might either lose a little bit of control in that you're not managing the storage cells, or you can look at it as there's something else I don't have to worry about because Oracle's managing it for me. Okay, so we'll talk more in detail about Cloud at Customer from the Exadata perspective. There is another product that recently was announced called PCC, or Private Cloud at Customer. Formerly, to us, was known as PCA. PCA was a converged architecture that would allow you to run Windows, Solaris, and Linux virtual machines. That was an on-prem. The PCA was an on-prem managed by the customer platform. Now, Private Cloud at Customer has been released. It's essentially a PCA managed by Oracle. In addition to allowing you to run those VMs on the PCC, Oracle has also added to that the Kubernetes orchestration. So it's natively able to run containers managed with Kubernetes. Now, in terms of the management from that perspective, in a private cloud at customer, there are 2 compute nodes called management nodes, which actually are used to house and manage all of the VMs that are on those machines. Those are actually managed and upgraded and patched by Oracle, the cloud services. So now you could have a fully cloud managed environment, apps and database in your data center managed by Oracle. Previous to this, really Cloud at Customer meant Oracle Exadata. Now PCC gives you the ability to have that app managed environment as well. In addition to that, Oracle also has something that I find very interesting. It's called the Dedicated Region Cloud at Customer. And what that means is you actually get a full Oracle Cloud implementation in your data center. That could include bare metal hardware. It could include Exadata, could include PCA, PCC, etc. It's actually built in your data center, requires a minimum square footage, and then Oracle manages that environment like they would the public cloud. That is a fairly sizable commit. You have to provide the data center power and the space, and Oracle brings in the hardware. There is some lead time, obviously, to build an environment like that, and it comes with a price, as I note here, starting at $500K a month for a minimum 3-year commit. You can find some interesting videos on Oracle's website about the kind of companies that are doing this. Obviously, they're on the larger side, and those that really are committing to a cloud environment and need that enterprise class database still managed within a cloud environment. One thing I'll note here too is that, I talk a lot about our customer base. Since most of our customers are running Exadata, that generally means you're going to run into very large data sets that are critical to the business.
7 or 8 options
and
to the client, right?
I'm checking whoever's
I struggle, and
speaking.
I'm starting to see this with quite a few of the SCs in the total space.
Arun,
where it's sort of like,
can you mute, please? Oh, let me see if I can mute.
going to buy a car, right? I'm trying.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'm not sure if that was a question coming from me or if it was someone else. But our customer base is running very large databases, usually very critical, and usually there are reasons that their data cannot be moved into the public cloud. So that's where these cloud at customer services really come into play. Many of our customers have environments that are in a public cloud, but it's generally not their 100 terabyte Oracle databases. So that's where the cloud at customer product set really comes into play, in that you need a cloud-like environment, but you can't move your data to the public cloud for any of a number of reasons. Okay, So we're going to talk more about the Exadata Cloud at Customer and what it is and maybe what it isn't. But when you need to think of it in these terms, first and foremost, you get an Exadata machine. You're going to get the Exadata performance, stability, and scalability, and you are going to have certain parts of that machine managed by Oracle. Okay, now what that does for you is it does provide for you those, the ability to run in a cloud-like environment, but still maintain your data sovereignty, potentially latency to on-prem applications that can't be moved, or regulatory restrictions which say that you cannot have your data in the public cloud. Many of our customers that have gone to the cloud at customer model have done it for financial reasons, along with wanting to maintain these large databases on a highly performant platform. When you go to cloud at customer, you're basically signing up for a monthly subscription, not only for your licenses but also for the hardware. So very often we hear, I'm really not concerned about the price overall. It just has to be an OpEx model, so it has to be cloud-like. In that case, the cloud at customer fits the bill, and depending on the configuration, you can start small and grow. You can start small and burst, but in all cases, you're dealing with a flexible OpEx pricing model. You can do CPU bursting with the cloud at customer. So if you're very diligent about sizing your environment, you might be able to move from, for example, a non-Exadata platform running 48 cores to an Exadata platform potentially running, let's say, 12 cores, where you can burst up to 24. So you need to know exactly what your workload requires before you do something like that. And you don't want to make your move to an Exadata Cloud at Customer a purely financial transaction, because you don't want to undersize your license count. So it's very important to understand exactly how you're going to use the platform before you go and say, well, I know I can cut my core count because Exadata is faster, but how much can I cut it? Got to make sure you understand what's going on there. There is a really nice pay-as-you-go option as well. There are some things you can do in terms of testing and proofs of concept if you needed to. What does it look like to run my database in a cloud environment? You can do a pay-as-you-go on an Oracle cloud environment to make sure you understand what it takes to run or manage one of these environments before you go full in on it. The real key here, though, is that you can run your very, very large databases on these platforms still in your data center, but with that financial model that says, I'm running in the cloud, or to meet the needs of that financial model. Now, we actually do have several options of where these things can be hosted. One could be in your data center, one could be in a colo, another could be in a data center which is co-locating another cloud provider. So we have a lot of interest in what we call the hybrid cloud, where you might have applications in a non-Oracle cloud environment, but you want to keep your data in a cloud-based Exadata. Then you put your cloud at customer machine in a data center that co-locates the other non-Oracle cloud, Amazon, Azure, whatever, with a low latency connection, and now you have a hybrid cloud environment. So that is also becoming more and more popular as you hear the term, I would like to get out of the data center business. Somebody still has to stay in the data center business because somebody's hosting the cloud. Somebody still has to host some application servers, some database servers. And if you can take advantage of both, then that hybrid cloud model becomes fairly easy to implement. Okay, now, if you go with a cloud at customer machine, this is what an Exadata box looks like. Now, what I've done is I've highlighted pieces of this environment. So you need to know what it is that you own and what you're responsible for. And I should use the term own in the right way, right? You don't really own any of this. It's owned by Oracle and you're using it. But what is your responsibility? What's Oracle's responsibility? If you've never worked with a virtualized environment or an OVM or KVM environment, then this might be a new term for you. Oracle's responsibility is the DOM0, which is the hypervisor layer. That is not your Linux operating system. They don't see your Linux operating system, only you do. So they are managing that DOM0, which hosts your guest OSs. In the newer versions, they're now using KVM versus OVM, and this patching of the storage cells. So in an on-prem machine, you would either have Platinum Services patch your storage cells, or you would have you do it yourself, or have somebody like Infolob do it. In a cloud at customer, Oracle is responsible for those red pieces there. The blue in the middle is I consider that a little bit of a hybrid, because the DOM0 is running on the compute node, as is your guest operating system. So Oracle is managing some of these components in here, and you are managing some. So while Oracle may upgrade the DOM0 with the hypervisor layer, you are still responsible, or allowed to, depending on how you want to put that, manage the OS. So if you can't upgrade your OS from Linux 6 to Linux 7 because of some requirement from software standpoint, you can leave it as is. You're not going to be forced. Now, Oracle is going to be upgrading or patching these storage cells on a particular schedule, and you will have the ability to say, I want that, or I don't want that, but only up to a limit. Oracle's not going to let you get 3 years behind on patching on the storage cell layer. A lot of times questions come up about, well, what happens when they patch those things? Well, there will be some effect, but they will do them in a rolling fashion. And unless you're using an extreme amount of I/O during the time that they're doing the patching, you probably won't notice that those patches are going on. So it is sometimes when we discuss this with our customer base, they're like, well, what, does Oracle patch everything for me? The answer is no, they don't. They're not going to patch your database homes, because they don't know when, like if you're running e-business suite or something here, they don't know when or what necessarily that you're running, because they cannot see your operating systems. Okay. Now, when we talk about what it looks like from a communication standpoint on the cloud at customer, if you're the customer admin sitting in your data center, you actually communicate through a cloud-based control plane. This is new. On Gen 2, this is new. You're actually communicating to an Oracle cloud-based control plane, which connects back to your on-prem cloud at customer. In Gen 1, there was no external connection. There actually was a cloud plane sitting in the data center. So we have multiple Gen 1 cloud at customer customers. They all have cloud planes that are sitting in their data centers. So when they switch to Gen 2, those will go away. This certainly simplifies things, because it's only one piece of hardware. The connectivity for management is pretty trivial, as you can see here. So if you wanted to create a cluster, for example, you will log into an Oracle Cloud environment, an Oracle Cloud management environment, which will come through a browser, and you can say, I want to create a cluster on my cloud at customer machine. When I do that, I'm going to create a database. If I want to create another database, I don't do it with DBCA. I go back to the control plane and I say, I want to create another database and I want to put it in this cluster. Okay, so Oracle will basically be able to help manage what, how you create those databases. Since you have a subscription for licensing, Oracle obviously has to know how many CPUs you're using. Oracle has to enable CPUs through the cloud plane. So if you say, I want to increase my CPU count via subscription, for example, you would have to go buy some more OCPUs, and then through this interface, you would be able to enable those. If you wanted to do bursting, you could do bursting through the interface. but all of that is now happening through a cloud-based environment. And there are servers, we call them the top of rack switches in the Exadata that provide that connectivity back to the Oracle Cloud. So when you have questions, Oracle Cloud Ops can log on through the control plane, can help you do troubleshooting at the infrastructure layer. Again, if you have problems with a database, you would use the general Oracle support for that kind of thing. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over here to an environment that I have running. I'm going to drag this onto the screen and show you a couple of things about how these things can look. Now, this environment right here that I've got in front of you is running on a virtualized Exadata that is sitting in my lab in Dallas. I'm going to drop out of the database and show you what this looks like. So this is the machine name. It says INFX VC1. That's Virtual Cluster 1 VM01, which tells me that that is on node 1, physical node 1 of the 2 nodes of the rack, -ADM. That's just a default name. On my Exadata, I have 2 clusters. I have a cluster 1 and a cluster 2. So I have 2 VMs running per compute node. Same thing would be true in a Cloud@Customer environment. You can have up to a certain number of clusters running on the machine. Every time you create a new cluster, you're creating a new VM on each compute node. And at the disk layer, you're actually slicing up the disk for each cluster. So if you're familiar with an Exadata platform today, you know you have a data disk group and a Rico disk group. On this machine here, I have data cluster 1 and data cluster 2. Rico cluster 1, Rico cluster 2. So as you identify what you think you're going to put on these machines, and you say, okay, I'm going to have 2 clusters or 4 clusters or whatever, you have to be very cognizant of how you're going to have to divide up that disk. Because on an Exadata Cloud@Customer or a virtualized Exadata like I have here, you don't get to use all the disk across all the clusters. Each cluster has its own. Okay, so I'm going to get back into the database here. And just as a quick demo for if there's anyone on that hasn't seen the processing power of the Exadata, what I did here was on my machine, I told it not to do smart scans. And I ran a query against a table that has a couple of 100 million rows in it. It took 2 minutes. I'm going to go back and I'm going to change that to allow the Exadata to do its thing. This is going to allow me to use smart scans. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to hit that same query again. And I should see a little bit better performance. There we go, 2.9 seconds. Okay, so that's 2 minutes. That's 122 seconds. Now let's round it down to 3. That's about a 40x improvement in performance. So for any of you that are thinking of going from something running Oracle to Exadata running Oracle, these are the kind of numbers that we expect to see. Also, I have up here a connection to another cloud environment. This is an Oracle automated transaction processing environment, which is running in the Oracle Cloud. I had that same data set, but I cut it in half, running up in the cloud. I ran that same query. Now I've only got half the number of rows, but that query ran in 0.5 seconds. So half a second versus 3 seconds. This query here is running on an X8 Exadata. This query here is running on X5. If you cut this in half, it's a minute, it's 1.5 seconds. Over here, it's running in 0.5. So the newer machines are getting even faster than, it amazes me every time I look at this. They're getting faster just from a CPU and a capability standpoint. Now, in this particular case, this is using flash cache only. It's not using PMEM. That is a, half a second query on about 1 million blocks coming out of that database. Over here, I have another connection into that same database to show you what this query did. So this query that ran in a half a second here scanned 9 gigs of data. The Exadata Smart Scan feature kicked in, allowed me to only return 21 megs of data, which is a big reason why it only took 0.4 seconds to run. Now, I'm also showing you this because this query here is a tool that was written by us. It's a SQL query to show us what's happening within the Exadata platform. It runs on my on-prem machine. It runs on the ATP in the cloud. It's going to run exactly the same way on a cloud customer. So what matters is Exadata works the same way, whether it's in any one of these formats. And that's what's really important. So for you guys, if you're the DBA or the developer, or you know, if you're somebody responsible for the technology, it's an Exadata. If you're one of the guys that are responsible for buying this kind of platform, you can buy this stuff either in the cloud, on-prem, or as cloud at customer. The financial model that you need is available. That's what's really key about that. So from the standpoint of, well, what am I going to do when I get this machine? How do I manage it? How do I deal with it? How do I move data to it? I'll tell you that in this data set here, the one that I just ran against here, I created a DB link and I moved data from my laptop sitting in Dallas to that Oracle Cloud environment with an insert into. On another environment, I did a data pump import. On another environment, I did an RMAN duplicate. All of them are the same, okay? So once the decision to go to Exadata is done, once the procurement model is done, it's an Exadata. And as long as you know how to manage it, and you know how to run Oracle in relation to an Exadata, you can take full advantage of the features in any one of those environments. So the reason I'm describing it this way is because I want to make sure that everybody gets the point that if you had Exadata before on-prem and you're going to Exadata Cloud at Customer, it's Exadata. If you can get past, you know, how do I patch it? Who patches it? When does it get patched? It's just an Exadata, okay? Now, when we open up for questions at the end, I can come back to this and show you guys whatever you want to see. All right, I'm going to get back over here to the presentation. So this is basically, again, when you're running the cloud at customer environment, you're going to do things a little bit differently, and it's a little bit only in certain cases. So when you create a database or you create a cluster, you're going to do it through the environment. You're going to do it through the cloud environment. You, as the DBA, are not going to do anything to set up ASM or to manipulate ASM. That's all going to happen as a feature or as a function of setting up a cluster. So it does take a little, depending on who you are, it takes maybe a little bit of control out of your hands, or as I said before, maybe it's just one less thing for you to worry about. Okay, planning is really, really important though, because as I said too, if you create 4 clusters, you're going to cut your disk up into 4 different data C1, you know, Rico C1, etc. So planning is really important in these environments. All right, so why would you want to use Exadata Cloud at Customer? The first bullet point is the one we hear most often. We have a cloud first mandate. I want to be out of the data center. I want to be out of the data center business. And I would tell you that very few of our customers actually own their own data centers. Most of them are co-located somewhere. So you're basically going to say, I don't want to manage my hardware anymore. I don't want to be responsible for buying and replacing my hardware if a piece breaks. Very often these things become financial transactions because I have to go to an OpEx versus a CapEx environment. I just had a conversation today with a customer that said, I just don't want to have that initial cash outlay again when I upgrade my Exadata. If you go to a cloud at customer, you can then say, okay, what's my monthly cost going to be? It's not a cash outlay. It's a monthly cost based on how you configure the machine. If you do think that you need the ability to burst your CPU count up and down, it's there in the cloud at customer environment. it's not necessarily an automated process where you say, okay, if one of my queries wants to use 16 CPUs and I only have 12, the system will automatically go to 16 and come back down. It's not that automated, at least not yet. You do have to say, I want to either increase my subscription count or I want to burst. And there are limitations on both. So since we only have an hour, we don't really have enough time to get into the detail. But I do have a couple of links that I'll show you that you can go look. You can dig this stuff up pretty quickly. Oracle's done a pretty good job of identifying what you can and can't do in these platforms. So there are also cases where I need to minimize my Oracle license spend. If you can prove that you can do with fewer licenses when you go to an Exadata Cloud@Customer, then there are mechanisms to help you do that. If I want to reduce my infrastructure management requirements, meaning I don't want to deal with the machine at all. It's not my responsibility anymore. I just pay a monthly fee and I get a database. That's really what you're getting as far as that's concerned. Often too, we've heard customers say, well, I really would like to have multi-tenant, or I'd really like to have my data encrypted. And when you go to Cloud@Customer, you essentially get every database license that's available, and you are required to use transparent data encryption. So any data that you move to the Exadata platform will be encrypted. Now, in some cases, especially on a non-Exadata platform, that might be an issue because encryption takes more CPU in order for you to get your data out. Because as you can imagine, if your data is encrypted, it's got to be decrypted before you can read it. Something that we talk about a lot and we focus on is that Exadata storage cells can do decryption for you. So if you get Exadata features to kick in, then the encryption or the decryption process specifically is not that big a deal. Maybe 0 to 5% hit on performance. If you're running on a Solaris box and you go to Oracle Transparent Data Encryption, well, guess what? Your compute node has to do all the decryption as well as all the other work. So going to Exadata, enabling encryption and decryption is really not a big deal as long as the Exadata features are utilized fully. That last bullet too is a real it's a real good easy step to go to a cloud-like environment. So if you feel like you have a cloud first mandate, but you've got 75 upstream and 40 downstream applications and databases from your main data warehouse that's running on Exadata, you can get the Exadata component into the cloud. Then once that's done, you can then start to selectively add other components into the cloud environments that make the most sense. Again, if you go with a hybrid model and you place your Exadata at a point where you can easily get to other cloud providers or the Oracle Cloud for that matter, it's pretty easy to selectively move environments into a public cloud, or what most of our customers talk about to begin with is moving development environments. So I want to move a development environment to the cloud, but I don't want to move my 200 terabyte data warehouse to the cloud. Cloud@Customer, 200 terabyte data set, Oracle Cloud for your development, your non-prod environments, all connected through a low latency connection, and you got the best of both worlds. All right, so Cloud@Customer pricing. We're not going to go into a lot of detail here. There's a lot you can do. It's very flexible, so we're going to talk just briefly about it. But what you buy when you get Cloud@Customer is you get an Exadata rack. When you get the Exadata rack, it comes with compute nodes, it comes with the internal network, it comes with the storage cells and the storage cell licenses. Then you either buy Oracle CPUs, which you pay for on a monthly subscription basis, or you bring your own license. So the bring your own license thing is very attractive in a lot of cases, customers, because most of your investment in Oracle is in the software license, not really in the hardware. You know, if you're running 48 licenses of Oracle, that costs a lot more than a couple of Exadatas. So if you can bring those licenses and leverage the Exadata Cloud at Customer hardware, it's a very easy transition. When you go to the Cloud at Customer, you're talking about a 4-year subscription price. Subscription means that at the end of 4 years, your subscription is over. And if you were on an X8 4 years later, let's say that now Exadata is an X10 and you want to continue to use Exadata, you would replace your X8s with that X10 and away you'd go on another 4-year subscription. In the case of the bring your own license, you still have to pay a fee to use your own license because there are other features that come with the Exadata Cloud at Customer that you don't already own, potentially. If you're going from a non-Exadata to an Exadata, the Exadata storage cells, which have a license component, they come with it. So there still is there is a minimal hourly subscription price for bring your own. I have a link here to the bring your own license FAQ page, and I will actually bring it up here and show you this because this is interesting, good information. If you have questions about what you're going to do, this page will lay it out for you. I'm not going to go into all this stuff. This we'll add this link to an email that comes out after the fact, but you can go out here and find out what exactly are the rules if you're bringing your own licenses to the Exadata Cloud at Customer. Definitely information you need to have so you understand exactly how to best utilize the licenses you might already own. Okay, also, I went out to the Oracle Cloud website and I built myself a little pricing calculator here, which again does not include everything. It just gives me a way to say how much might something cost me if I start at the very bottom, a base rack. And these are numbers right off of the Oracle website. I would encourage you to always check the website because sometimes these things change. But you can see here that an OCPU subscription per hour is $1.34, 744 hours in a month. That calculates how much does it cost me a month for an Exadata rack plus one OCPU. So I can see what that number is, and I can determine kind of in a round number what I might be looking at. The reason I'm showing you this is because this is the OCPU license per hour. This is if I bring my own license. Okay, so this is the fee if you do a BYOL to the Exadata platform. All right, now if you do bring your own license, you still own that license and you still pay your regular support on that. So I also brought up a thing here just to say, what would it cost me if I kept my own licenses, and what would the support be over a certain number of years? Okay, so this stuff is all public information. I just brought it out here just so I could have it in a single spot. As those numbers change, if this goes down, and they always seem to go down, I can come over here and just modify this and I can get a good idea of what I'll be looking at. Okay, so I'm going to come back over to here. Now, if you do think about bring your own license versus subscription, it's important to know what you get. So as I mentioned before, if you go with an OCPU license that you buy from Oracle for the Cloud at Customer, you get every option. Some of them are maybe not as evident as others. You get database in memory, you get the ×10 app tier DB cache, OLAP and spatial, which are actually free now on every Oracle license. Database vault, extremely important. If anyone ever asks me what is an option that I would buy outside of database rack partitioning, diag, and tuning, I would say database vault, because that is the way that you can lock down and limit use of the sys or the highly privileged user accounts. And one of the examples I always use, I went to a customer that said, here, log into my PeopleSoft database and tell me what you think is going on. And I said, no, because the only account that they had was connect slash as sysdba. So I said, if this is already struggling, if something bad happens while I'm logged in, you won't know it wasn't me that did it. If Database Vault were there, then they could hand over the control of sys to me for 30 minutes or an hour for me to look around and then take it back away. And they would know who was sys during what time of the day. Also, you know, in the days of data breaches, you know, us database guys can do things unintentionally sometimes, maybe spool the contents of an encrypted table, which becomes decrypted, and it ends up on your laptop. If you eliminate the ability for somebody to hit data that is privileged using Database Vault, you have a whole lot less chance of doing something unintentional that really can hurt you in terms of data security. So Database Vault's extremely important. It comes with the package, as well as an ASO, as I mentioned before. Everything that goes on to an Exadata cloud at customer is going to be encrypted. No question. You don't have a choice. Real application testing is something we use quite a bit. Something that's very, very effective in terms of helping you identify if I'm going to move from one platform to another or from one version of the database to the next. You can test your production workloads. Again, it's something that's very, very important, but not a lot of people have. The rest of the stuff, pretty straightforward. If you bring your own license, you only need to bring your Enterprise Edition license. If you have Enterprise Edition but you don't have advanced compression, you bring it to your cloud at customer, you don't get to use advanced compression. You have to buy it. If you don't have rack and you want to run rack on cloud at customer, you have to buy it. The things that do come with are also very important. Diag and tuning are two of the packages that when we work with our customers, we almost require that they have it because that gives us access to AWR and SQL Monitor. And those two tools are the ones that allow us to really do the kind of troubleshooting that's necessary in an Oracle environment running on Exadata. Without these two, I would say it's almost like driving blind. So that's really, it's a good thing in our eyes. Lifecycle management, data masking, and subsetting is another one that, second to Database Vault, I tell all our customers, if you're moving data from prod to non-prod, mask it. And then you don't have to worry about your data getting spread around and lost. So data masking and subsetting, again, is another one of those great things that that comes with Cloud at Customer. One of those things that is just part of the package. You don't have to go figure out how to get it. Okay, I'm going to try to stop here pretty quickly because I want to leave about 10 or 12 minutes for questions. Private Cloud at Customer is something that we talked about earlier. We would formally call it the PCA, and way back when it was called a VCA, Virtual Cloud Appliance. It is, in our opinion, it's the best platform to run your application layers because it has the ability to connect to your Exadata platform using their high-performance network. Plus, it can run Solaris, Linux, and Windows, which is the only converged appliance that can do that. So now that Oracle has released the PCC version of this, you still got your ability to host your applications next to your Exadata. It becomes a cloud-like appliance, so you can buy it as an OpEx versus a CapEx, with that vehicle. You can use Kubernetes for runC or Kata containers. So there's a lot of our customers that are saying, I have to do this. It's just a requirement in my development environment or my development pipeline. I have to be able to run containers. Now that becomes a more of a native feature of this. And again, like I said, the network connectivity is really key, especially if you've got an Exadata sitting next to it and you can get that high performance connectivity between your apps and your databases. We have several customers that are running PCAs already and are having PCA connected to Cloud Customer Exadata as well. Now, how does Infolob help? We have the following services. We will help you with Cloud Customer sizing and provisioning. So both your Exadata and your PCC. I say CESP here. We have a tool that we call Exadata sizing and provisioning, which is a script that you can run against any of your Oracle platforms today, regardless of what they're running on, Linux, IBM, Solaris, etc. And we use that to model what the Exadata will do with that workload. We also use that for capacity planning down the line as well. Database migration, upgrade, long-term support, those are all really important. We have everybody that's running Exadata or planning to run Exadata is putting critical workloads on those machines. So if you need minimal downtime migrations, whether it's Linux to Linux, Solaris or IBM to Linux, we've done migrations on the fly, minimal downtime, even with Endian conversions. So those are really, really important to our customers running these critical databases. And then the general Exadata performance management and optimization. That little demo that I showed you before is a very, very small part of what we do in terms of performance optimization on the Exadata platform. And as I say, there's no substitute for experience. Our team has been working with and owners of Exadata since the V2 version back in 2010. Our lab in Dallas currently has 3 Exadatas. We sacrificed one and turned it into a ZDLRA, which we didn't talk about here at all, but the Zero Data Loss Recovery Appliance. The other 2 are Exadatas. Bare Metal is one of them. I showed you the virtualized machine. And we have a PCA and ZFS in our lab also to allow us to pretty much replicate anything that our customer base might see. Okay, so it is 10 till. I will go ahead and open up for questions. If anybody has any, or you want, probably the easiest is to use the chat. I will try to open up the chat on my side to see if there's anything in it. Samir, I don't know if you've been monitoring it, but let's see if we have any questions here. I don't see anything in the chat window. If anybody has a question, you want to just unmute and yell it out, feel free. While I'm waiting, I'll tell you that we have two customers that have gone wholesale to the Cloud Customer. Both of them previously were they were previously Exadata on-prem customers. Both of them did the migration for financial reasons. They needed a way to reduce their license count. They had more than they needed, so moving to the Cloud Customer gave them an opportunity to do that. Both of them are Gen 1, and both of them are planning to migrate to Gen 2. Okay, so question. How long did it take to upload your data set to ATP over the public internet? That's a good question. My full data set is about 20 gigs. I moved half of it because I'm using an always free ATP environment. So I moved 10 gigs in about 15 minutes. And I did it in the slowest possible way, which is insert into as select from, and I was not allowed to parallelize that. So it was a single stream insert, about 15 minutes. I'd say it took longer to set up the DB link than it did to actually move the data. Because if any of you have worked within a database environment in the cloud today, you know you have to use SSH keys in order to communicate, in order to authenticate to the cloud database. When you do that, you actually have to include the keys in your DB link, because you have to authenticate in order to get in there. So there is a different configuration for the DB link to go from my laptop to the Exadata in the cloud. In the other cases, what we did was we set up a block storage, and then there is a mechanism to FTP into the block storage from a laptop or from our lab. And then once the data is in the block storage, then we were able to just do an import, data pump import from block straight into the database. Any questions? I know there's a few people on here that are moving to Cloud@Customer. Any specific questions or any concerns that you guys might have about going from an on-prem to a Cloud@Customer? From our experience, I can tell you that it does not have to be difficult. As long as you plan for how you're going to configure the machine and how you plan for how you're going to use the storage, it can be very, very easy transition. If you don't plan and you decide that you want to resize a cluster, as you can imagine, when you resize a cluster, that means you're going to take down your VMs and you're going to rebuild them. And that's not hard. The interface allows you to do that pretty easily. But if you do that and you've already got, let's say, 50 terabytes of data in a database that's in that cluster, you're going to dump that data and you're going to have to reload it when you're done. And again, I'm telling you that from experience, and which is why I say planning is the key. And you can still see ESP up here on the screen. We use our ESP tool, which actually, it's called sizing and provisioning to us. We run that on a weekly basis at one of our customers because they're running multiple clusters on a single machine, and they want to see how are they using the CPU, the RAM, and the storage across all the databases in each cluster. And that tool allows us to do that. Now, what that tool requires is that we have access to AWR data. Now, there's very few people that are running Oracle on Exadata that don't have the diag and tuning packs, but there are a few that don't. So that tool is very, very effective at giving you a snapshot in time of every database running in a cluster, as opposed to something like OEM, which lets you look at one at a time. But having the access to the AWR data is really, really key in that case. Let me drop the chat window back up here. Looks like no questions. We still have 10 people out there. Feel free to ask me anything that you like. I'll answer anything that I can. And if not, I might give you 5 minutes back. But before I do, I will drop to this page. This is our, here's a question. Would you say that Cloud@Customer is more secure? I would say in comparison to an Exadata on-prem, in most cases, I would say that yes, the Exadata Cloud@Customer is going to be a more secure platform because not everybody runs transparent data encryption minimally. Since TDE is turned on by default, at least if you lose your data files or if your backups fall off the back of a truck on the way to your archive location, they're going to be encrypted. That in itself means you don't have to think about it, and your data is going to be encrypted. From the standpoint of logging into the platform, it's essentially the same. If you use the features that are given to you, as like if you buy the OCPUs and you have Data Vault available to you and you put it into play, then it is absolutely more secure. some of the new tools that Oracle has released recently for for your cloud components. I don't want to say it's the same as a CASB, but Oracle now provides the ability to review the security and the holes that are potentially open in all of your cloud components, and it's just part of your Oracle subscription. So on an on-prem environment, if you don't have some third-party security tool or some very stringent security practices, then again, I would say Cloud@Customer probably out of the box. It may provide you a little more security than you would get otherwise. Okay, guys, it's 1:57. I put up here on the screen Samir Date. He's our sales director for cloud infrastructure. If you have questions about anything cloud related, contact Samir. Samir will work with either the rest of our sales team, depending on where and what it is that you're looking at. Brent Seaman also would become involved in those kind of conversations, but Samir would be your point of contact to get any more information out of us, and he will make sure that the right people respond. So with that, since there are no more questions, it's 1:58. I will go ahead and stop the screen share. I'll wait for another minute or two in case any other questions pop up. Otherwise, thanks everyone for joining.
Just want to say thanks, Tim, for putting this together and sharing this with everybody. And I wanted to say thank you to everybody who attended.
All right, thanks everybody.